They planned a US bank heist so perfect, when the FBI arrived, the vault was empty, and there wasn't a single clue left behind.
No fingerprints, no working cameras, no forced entry. Tens of millions of dollars gone. For months, investigators had no suspects, no leads, no explanation. This wasn't a smash and grab. This was a robbery engineered to erase itself, a ghost crime that was never supposed to be solved, until one tiny mistake, one careless second, blew the entire operation apart. Today, we're opening the FBI file they never thought would be cracked. You're watching the US bank heist designed to leave no evidence. FBI case file. And this is a story about how close you can get to a perfect crime before human nature ruins everything. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we dive deep into real investigations, covert operations, and the high-stakes cases that shaped modern law enforcement. This video is based on a real FBI investigation. Some names and minor details have been changed for privacy, but the core events, the planning, the heist, and the takedown, come straight from the case file. So how do you rob a bank in the United States, walk away with millions, and leave behind nothing? To answer that, we have to start with one man on the inside. We'll call him Michael. On paper, Michael was the perfect employee. He worked at a high-security cash depot connected to a major U.S. bank. The kind of facility where armored trucks roll in, millions of dollars are counted, sorted, and stored and then sent back out to ATMs and branches around the city. His job gave him access to the building knowledge of security routines, and most important, time to study everything. Over months, then years, Michael learned which doors locked automatically and where the cameras were, and what they couldn't see, which employees were armed, and which weren't. Which nights the vault held the most cash. He also watched something else. The company making millions while he stayed stuck on an average paycheck. Resentment turned into obsession. Obsession turned into a question. If anyone could rob this place and get away with it, wouldn't it be me? From the beginning, Michael wasn't just planning a robbery. He was planning an investigation. Not from the FBI side, from his side. He asked himself, what would investigators look for? What leaves physical traces? What could link the crime back to him? And then he designed the heist to remove those things one by one. No phones, no texting, no written plans. He handpicked a small crew of people he knew personally. Men without obvious criminal records, who trusted him more than they feared law enforcement. He laid down strict rules. No bragging. No talking in public. No new cars, no flashy spending right after the job. No weapons unless absolutely necessary. And most importantly, if anyone leaves evidence behind, we all go down. The timing was chosen just as carefully. A long holiday weekend, when the vault would be packed with cash, but the number of staff on duty would be at its lowest. Security would be relaxed. The neighborhood would be quiet. And if everything went to plan, the first people to discover the missing money wouldn't show up until days later. This wasn't just a heist. This was a drill designed to beat the FBI. It started like any other shift. Inside the depot, some employees were finishing counts, others preparing deposits for the next morning. Michael walked the halls like he always did, calm, routine, invisible. But outside, his crew was already in place. They weren't charging in with ski masks and guns blazing. They were waiting quietly, patiently, for Michael's signal. Because he was the key. Using his knowledge of the building, Michael arranged the moment when the fewest people would be in the most critical area. The rear access points were unlocked, and the camera coverage was at its weakest. At exactly the right minute, the crew slipped inside. No broken doors, no shattered glass, no alarms screaming in the night. They moved fast. Within seconds, employees were disarmed, zip-tied, and blindfolded. The crew knew exactly where to go, because Michael had shown them everything they needed, down to where the carts, pallets, and cash racks were kept. The vault doors opened on schedule. This was normal for that time of night. What wasn't normal was what happened next. Instead of routine transfers, the crew began stripping the vault. They went for high-denomination bills, easy-to-move bundles, and stacks already prepared for shipment in under half an hour. They loaded millions of dollars into waiting containers. The employees on the floor heard movement, voices, orders, but with their heads covered, they never saw a face they could recognize later. No one shouted real names. No one took off their gloves. The cameras? Most of them were either pointed away from key areas, or had already been quietly disabled, not with a dramatic smash, but with inside knowledge of which systems could be interrupted without triggering an immediate alarm. By the time the crew rolled the cash out to their vehicle and disappeared into the night, it still looked, from the outside, like just another quiet weekend at the bank's cash depot. The next business day, the first hint that something was wrong came during routine counting. Numbers didn't match. At first, staff thought it was a simple mistake, a miscount, a mislabel, a transfer logged incorrectly. But as the hours went by, the truth became impossible to ignore. Millions of dollars gone. Not a small discrepancy. Not an accounting error. A massive hole in the vault. Police were called. Then the FBI. When agents arrived on scene, they were expecting the usual signs of a serious robbery. Forced entry, damaged locks. Drill marks on vault doors, fingerprints on surfaces, footprints, fibers, dropped tools, something instead. They found almost nothing. The doors were intact. There were no signs of a violent break-in. The locks worked. It looked less like a robbery, and more like the money had simply vanished. When the FBI processes a crime scene, they think in layers. Physical evidence, electronic evidence, human behavior on the physical side. This case was a nightmare. Surfaces had been wiped or never touched with bare hands. No useful fingerprints, no blood, no shell casings, no discarded tools, electronic evidence. Also a dead end. Multiple cameras weren't recording at the key moments. Some showed only blocked or empty angles. Others simply stopped before the crew appeared. It looked almost like someone had walked around the system, not crashed through it. Agents quickly realized this wasn't an outside gang guessing their way through a job. This was an inside informed operation. They interviewed every employee, Michael included. He sat in the same chair as everyone else. Calm, helpful, cooperative. He had an alibi. He'd been on duty, then left at his usual time. He'd been just as shocked as anyone to hear about the missing money. And with no direct evidence, no camera footage, no eyewitness, no fingerprints, the FBI could suspect an inside job. But they couldn't prove it. For months, the case sat in a strange place. Huge loss, enormous pressure, and almost nothing to go on exactly as Michael had hoped. For the crew, the hard part should have been over. They had done it. Millions in cash, sitting in front of them, far from security cameras, far from the vault. But stealing the money was only half the challenge. The other half? Spending it. Without getting caught. According to the case file, the crew tried to be careful. They didn't all go out and buy sports cars the next day. They didn't post photos of cash on social media. They knew that sudden lifestyle changes are red flags investigators look for. So they stored the money in hidden locations, used intermediaries to move small amounts, slowly filtered cash into the real estate market and small businesses, continued working normal jobs to avoid suspicion. For a while it worked. The money flowed quietly into the city, one bundle at a time. The FBI's investigation went cold. Internally, agents referred to it as a ghost heist. Everyone knew it had happened, but there was nothing to grab onto. And then, as in so many perfect crime stories, someone got lazy. It didn't start with a dramatic confession. It started with a pattern. Investigators noticed that specific cash bundles, tied with certain straps and markings unique to the robbed facility, had started to surface in unexpected places. One relatively small seizure, connected to a low-level local case, showed bills that should have been destroyed after the heist or locked away as evidence. Instead, they were in circulation. Tracing that money backward led the FBI to a man linked, indirectly, to one of the crew members. Over time, surveillance built a picture. A person with modest reported income, suddenly connected to cash-heavy deals. Meeting quietly with a handful of regular associates, agents dug deeper. During a search related to financial crimes, they found it. A piece of packaging, a money strap, and a torn label that matched the exact format used at the robbed cash depot. It was the kind of thing most people would throw away without a second thought, but for the FBI, it was gold. That one careless scrap tied the suspect back to the stolen cash, and by extension, back to the heist. Now they had leverage. The FBI didn't kick in doors and arrest everyone at once. They went one by one. They interviewed suspects, applied pressure, and quietly showed selected pieces of evidence to make it clear. We know more than you think we do. And we only need one of you to talk. Faced with the possibility of decades in federal prison, one member of the crew finally broke. In exchange for a deal, he gave investigators the missing puzzle pieces: how the crew had entered the building, how the timing was chosen, which employee had provided inside information, where some of the remaining money was hidden. The name that came up again and again was Michael's, the perfect employee, the helpful witness. The man who had sat across from FBI agents months earlier and denied everything, while knowing he'd engineered the entire operation. Armed with new testimony and a clearer picture of the inside role, agents re-interviewed him. This time the tone was different. They confronted him with financial records that didn't match his salary, witness statements from former associates, evidence that tied him to the suspect network. Once the facade cracked, the rest came crashing down. Arrests followed. Search warrants recovered some of the hidden cash. In court, prosecutors laid out the story of a heist built to leave no evidence, and how one tiny, human mistake had brought the entire scheme down. Michael and his crew were sentenced to long prison terms. The perfect crime had failed. So what made this heist so dangerous and so close to success? From the FBI's own perspective, a few factors stand out. Inside knowledge the crew didn't guess. They knew the layout, the routines, and the blind spots, which made the crime scene look clean instead of chaotic. Minimal physical evidence: gloves, covered faces, no phones, no random violence. The usual trace evidence investigators rely on was almost non-existent. Timing a holiday weekend with maximum cash on hand and minimum staff present bought the crew precious time to disappear before anyone realized what happened. Slow, controlled spending. For a long time, they didn't draw attention to themselves with sudden wealth, delaying the point at which money trails could lead back to them. But on the other side of the ledger, you have the thing that destroys more criminal plans than any piece of technology: human error. Someone kept a scrap they should have burned. Someone talked to the wrong person. Someone underestimated how long the FBI's memory really is. The heist was designed to leave no evidence. But it forgot that the weakest point in any plan is the people inside it. In the end, this case became a training example inside law enforcement circles. A reminder that not every robbery looks like chaos. A warning that the most dangerous criminals may be the ones already inside the system. And proof that even the smartest plan can be undone by one careless move. So the next time you hear about a perfect crime, remember this heist. The FBI walked into a vault with no fingerprints, no footage, no forced entry, nothing. And years later, they still put the crew behind bars. What do you think? Did this crew get unlucky? Or was their no evidence design always doomed to fail? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a real FBI case file, make sure to like the video so more people see it, subscribe to the channel for more heists, investigations, and real-world crime stories, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for watching the US bank heist designed to leave no evidence, FBI case file. And remember, in the real world, there is no such thing as the perfect crime.